I'm going to start this just to give me a second because I get weird when I press and go. Oh, welcome to Thursday. We're back. Kelly is back.
Hello.
And today we're going to talk about a whole bunch of skeezy white guys, notably Prince Andrew. And I guess to start, let's just talk about Prince Andrew kind of before Prince Andrew as we know him, which I don't actually know a whole lot about. I think I know more about his kids just because we're of a similar age. But I've seen like looking up things for Diana. I've seen a lot of pictures of the foursome, and we were just laughing. I see Fergie more as the recording artist rather than Sarah Ferguson. But did you watch their wedding?
I did at least part of it. I don't remember it being like a get up in the middle of the night or super early in the morning, whatever time it would have been, to watch it necessarily live every minute, but I'm pretty sure I watched at least part of it.
Which I think kind of probably bugged Andrew. Like the narrative that I've picked up just from reading things is that he's pretty jealous of the fact that he's not Prince Charles. And especially that his kids didn't get the same treatment as Charles's kids, which was kind of dumb.
You mean dumb for him thinking
Yeah.
they would? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think he has a bit of an ego.
Yes, a bit.
Yeah.
I think they all do. I mean, how are you raised as a prince?
Yeah.
Your whole life. But on top of that, there's an 11-year age difference between Charles and Andrew, which kind of sets them apart from other heirs and spares, because they didn't share much of a childhood with that 11-year age gap. And so Charles kind of got to be this crown prince. And I mean, he's still crown prince. He's been crown prince for 70-some years without much competition. But it also, when I was doing my research for the Heir vs. Spare video, when they were younger and when they were both kind of freshly married, that foursome seemed to be a thing.
I remember Diana and Fergie being kind of chastised and kind of set apart as kind of this duo that was, kind of got themselves in trouble and didn't always do what they perhaps were expected to do. I don't remember there being like, a lot of, here's this, you look at, they're on a double date kind of thing, like they hung out. I got more of an impression that Diana and Fergie kind of had their little, we married into this family club and kind of supported each other in that way, maybe.
Yeah.
At least somewhat, or to the extent they could. But I remember there being a lot of negative reaction to some of the things they did, which I thought were just kind of, young women having fun.
Well, we were talking in the car the other day about how Diana, like they were stupid for not seizing upon Diana because she, humanized a very stuffy husband. And I think kind of Fergie did this. I think Andrew was kind of known for being more fun than Charles anyway. And then I think he benefited the fact that he has been known for a long time as the Queen's favorite child. And that a lot of the excuses for some of the things the Queen has done, in a lot of people's opinions, kind of stupidly to protect him, have been based on the fact that she's been his favorite, or he's been her favorite. And some of the brothers knocking heads have also been based on the fact that Andrew has received protection from his parents that the other children have not.
I get the impression looking in from the outside that there's sort of a circle the wagons mentality in general.
Unless you're Harry and Meghan.
Yeah. Well, yeah. until recently, and if you're the right people. But, yeah, I mean, I think they've gone to, pretty extreme lengths to try to protect him.
Well, and I kind of go back and forth about why. Like, why would they go this far to protect Prince Andrew? Especially because at this point he's so institutionally irrelevant. Like, I could get maybe, 40, 50 years, no, maybe not that long ago, when he was, the spare, when he was considered the king in reserve, kind of full guns firing. But at this point, it's not just the family, it's the whole institution protecting him. And I don't know, it's weird to me.
I think part of it is probably the nature of the various allegations and the kind of general sliminess of all of the Epstein-related stuff. And the fact that, other than Epstein himself, there's, a large number of very rich, very powerful men who've been implicated in all of this, and none of them has either admitted anything, been convicted of anything, really paid any price for anything, and I don't think Prince Andrew wants to be the first.
No. Well, he has been very kind of out front. We were disagreeing to the extent, if any, that American news outlets kind of beat the royal family's drum in protecting Prince Andrew. But I mean, basically, from my standpoint, and there have been other men kind of implicated, that he's part of this trio between, it's like Prince Andrew, Epstein, and Trump that seem to be like on the front pages of all of this. And I think just him having kind of Prince attached to his name has perked people's ears up. But he also keeps doing really stupid shit, like doing that interview where he, says maybe the photo was faked, blah, blah, blah. It really strikes me as odd that they're doing all this to protect him, and yet he's going out there and saying stupid things like that.
Well, I think there's several things at work there. One is, we've already said, ego, narcissism. I think there's a huge streak of that, not only with all the powerful men that have been implicated in various misdeeds, but in the royal family itself. And there's a reluctance to admit wrongdoing to maybe a ridiculous degree.
Yeah.
And, people are born royal. They don't do anything to deserve it, quote unquote. They're not necessarily, they're not necessarily super intellectual or intelligent or good at things. It's sheer luck and birth. And so to expect that necessarily they're going to have the most, do the most intelligent things or react in the most, best way, I don't know why we'd necessarily expect that, because it's not like they've been vetted for a position
yeah.
and earned the title.
No.
It landed on their head.
See, the British will say that we just don't understand. We don't understand monarchy. I think they honestly, like in the modern day, kind of put that, because the Queen legitimately believes that God wants her to be queen. She legitimately believes that. Which, as a 29-year-old American, I cannot wrap my head around at all.
Yeah. As an older American, I can't wrap my head around that either. And I also, people may say we don't understand, but it's just fact.
Yes.
That these people were born into their job, and that doesn't necessarily mean that they would be good at it.
Well, and history has shown there's a lot of downsides to hereditary monarchy, because you get what you get.
Exactly.
And there have been rumors his whole life of how astoundingly stupid Prince Andrew is.
Could well be. I mean, certainly some of his statements and dodges and weaves in the past, recent past, would suggest that, he's certainly not bright enough to
shut up,
to be quiet.
Yeah. Well, I do think it goes back to that narcissism point of he thought he could come out and clear this all up. And the fact that there was no one at the palace who could put their hooks in him and tell him to, no one willing or no one able to get him to shut up, I think is bad.
Well, yeah. Someone who had given any thought to the situation would have told him to be quiet. As advice is given to anybody in a situation where they've engaged in conduct that, was some level of bad, all the way up to, the first thing, criminal suspects are told by any, halfway aware defense attorney is to keep their mouth shut.
Yeah. And he just refused. I don't think he can do that. He can't do it.
Because if you have the ego and the narcissism, you don't accept probably for yourself that you've done anything wrong, and you certainly think that you're able to go, toe to toe with some journalist and explain everything and it will be fine.
Well, I think they were surprised by the interview. I mean, the interview was done by BBC. So I think they honestly were caught a little off guard that she didn't just lob him softball question after softball question, which I would argue she kind of did. I mean, at the end, she was like, do you want to say anything else? Because he hadn't expressed any remorse, or not even expressed remorse. He's not admitting to wrongdoing. Like, expressed that he felt bad for Epstein's victims. And she kept kind of trying to bring him back to that. So even though this was like this disastrous interview, the BBC was still trying to kind of, wrap them in that little blanket. Like, come on, Andrew, say something, say something. I was going to say, too, that, like, he wants those pictures with the Queen. He wants those pictures of his family. And it's just odd to me that if he really didn't do what he's accused of doing, why he insists of kind of wrapping his family up in this.
His family that is all female.
I know. You say it, but daughters.
But I mean, he's wrapping himself. Oh, I'm not even saying it from a, he has daughters kind of standpoint, because I don't think you need to have daughters to not behave badly towards women. But the family that he wants to wrap, all the people you just mentioned that he wants to have pictures with, are female.
Yes.
Because the reaction, I think, of men to accusations of misconduct towards women is almost universally to trot out all the women in your life that will say you're a wonderful person. And I think that's just the knee-jerk reaction of men to any sorts of allegations like those that are I
don't want to use the phrase kind of like the cover-up is worse than the crime, because the crime the specific crime he's accused of, and we've talked about before, like, are we just supposed to believe he had, sex with one trafficking victim and then stopped? I mean, he was friends with him for a long time.
Yeah.
So it's like, you don't want to say the cover-up's worse than the crime, because what he's accused of doing is really awful. But I do think at this point, the royal family has been participating in a cover-up for close to 20 years. And at this point, they're almost protecting that cover-up as much as they're protecting him.
Well, probably. And obviously there's self-interest there, too. I mean, they're protecting themselves as,
yes.
They want to hold themselves up as, role models, and obviously there's probably countless examples of where they've failed at that. But I mean, I think they don't want. I mean, it would really be a big blow to the whole family, I think, if somehow Andrew were held accountable in some fashion.
Well, and I mean, there's been all this. Recently, it was just released that, like, Charles has said in other court cases he doesn't like people who rise above their stations, that kind of thing. I wonder if they even think he should be held accountable sometimes. Like, I don't know.
I think that's probably a good question, because I think I think there's probably a big strain of, how dare those, little people accuse Andrew, or try to bring him down, or try to mar the family, or whatever. I mean, there's definitely it's all wrapped up in the elitist, egotistical narcissism that I think invariably exists when you're told you're special and royal and above it all your whole life.
It's just, I guess I'm searching for a logical explanation for why they have gone out of their way to protect him. And I was in a thread the other day, and they were talking about, Harry and Meghan have actually been pretty reserved in their criticism of the royal family. I mean, especially because they're not financially dependent on them. Harry and Meghan could have done a lot worse in that Oprah interview. And I think they do have worse things to say. I don't know if there's waiting. It doesn't matter. But I think there legitimately is some fear of what an Andrew and Fergie might do if they were kind of cut off from the royal family, which I don't think would happen during the Queen's lifetime anyway. But I do think there's some fear of if they were cut loose, what they might be willing to say to the press.
Well, that may well be true. And I mean, during the Queen's lifetime is an ever shorter length of time. I mean, regardless of, whether that's 6 months or 6 years or 6 days, I mean, who knows? But I mean, the time is running short for the Queen to be able to protect Andrew if that's what she's doing. And I mean, clearly, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think clearly Sarah Ferguson had to be way reined in and somehow work something out so that she's willing to, sort of be back in that cocoon, because she was sort of going down the path, I think, towards maybe saying things, a long time ago. And I don't know. I think as long as they're getting benefits from the royal family, I think they'll
play the game. But then that's what makes it confusing, too, is because Harry and Meghan left, they're no longer financially tied to the family. And now the whole big question is, what funds are the family using to protect Andrew? What, if any public money is going in to protect Andrew? Why does he still live in a ginormous house? Why haven't his titles been stripped?
Because that would be admitting he did something wrong.
You would think they had an opportunity, though, after the interview. So this is what I don't get. And I don't work in PR, but I feel like I'm good at judging things. And I don't get why, after all these allegations, after he trots himself out and just has a F- interview, I feel like there was a window where they also could have said something like, hey, he was friends with Andrew. He did some he did some bad things. He was under the impression that it was consensual. They were of age. I don't know. I feel like they had an opening where they could have kind of stopped this, and they didn't. Again, kind of with that narcissism, but also hey, he just had this interview. It went really poorly, and because of this, he's gonna step back.
Well, I think they think the stepping back is like a huge punishment.
Which no one cares about Prince Andrew. No one cares about
Well, that's, I mean, but I think they think that's like
I think he thinks that's a huge punishment.
I think he thinks it's a huge punishment. I think they think it's a huge punishment. And I think to do anything more and would just be way too much of an admission that he did something wrong. And I think they will go to great lengths to not admit that. Or even approach an admission of that. And they certainly could have spun it better. They certainly could have probably handled it in a way that somehow let them keep their mindset that they want to have, that he didn't do anything wrong, but yet make it look less like they were going to extreme lengths to protect him, which is what it looks like now.
Well, and I mean, he still got the church photos with the Queen. He got to keep his titles. He gets to, again, live in this house. He gets to keep security. The main reason I focus on Prince Andrew, because I don't like any story where someone gets away. That's, I guess, the American part of me. I don't like any story where someone gets away with atrocious, illegal behavior because of who they are. Like, that just doesn't jive with the whole theme, although that turns out that is a very American thing, but whatever. But really, where I focus on Twitter is because it's so ludicrous to think of the protection Prince Andrew received while Harry and Meghan were basically kicked to the curb.
Well, yeah. I mean, the protection and just the whole coverage aspect of it. Yes. I mean, it seems like, in large part, at least, the little I know about it and what I see from afar is that the British press mostly ignores Andrew.
Yes.
Doesn't ever mention him. Whereas, people make up things about Meghan. People talk about things Harry and Meghan do like it's, oh my God, they released a statement about, Afghanistan. How dare they, and meanwhile, they just ignore what's probably actually bad conduct by Andrew. But
yeah. Well, and it's, the line for Meghan and the line for Diana both were that it was all the media, there was nothing we could do. And the whole Prince Andrew saga has shown that that's bull. I mean, there was a lot they could do, they just didn't want to. Prince Andrew has just shown kind of the hypocrisy of what happened to family members that they decide aren't worth protecting. It's not that they can't, it's they didn't want to. Yeah.
That highlights that.
I mean, that's
in an extreme way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and it's, I mean, at one point they were saying in one outlet over I think it was the Express, the Daily Express, the Express, I don't know. There was like 30,000 articles about Meghan Markle in like the span of a couple months.
Yeah.
And none on Prince Andrew.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah. It is insane. And it just shows that, it absolutely proves the point that if the royal family doesn't want something covered, it doesn't get covered. One way
in
or
the
the
UK.
other. Yeah. Yeah, in the UK.
Well, and I was talking about, in my last video, I was talking about they're pissed off at Harry and Meghan because now they can go to American outlets, and which means like the UK kind of has to cover it. They'll put a whole bunch of spin on it. But, when Oprah says something, as much as they like to pretend that, it doesn't matter, it does. But no, this story has been completely shut down in the UK. Which, and I mean, I think a lot of people blame this and a couple other things for why Harry and Meghan were treated so poorly, is that they were kind of trotted out as like, oh, no, don't talk about Andrew, don't talk about Prince William, look at this black American who had the audacity to wear black nail polish. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, it was convenient.
It was very convenient. Well, and just to kind of spin this conversation, there's, it just was released that the Queen or someone from the palace, we were talking, I wonder how much is released kind of under her name versus, I mean, she obviously is present for photos, so she knows some degree of it. Like those church photos were such a disaster to trot the Queen out to protect him. Whatever. But they just put out a statement that they didn't want, photographers taking photos of Andrew at Balmoral, which is insane. Yeah. Just a couple months ago, Prince William got in trouble for covering up or trying to cover up or stop photos being taken when he met with a political leader in Scotland about trying to get them to stay. There just seems to be lately, especially thinking about what happened to Harry and Meghan, the royal family trying even publicly to clamp down on that image, to stop photographs from being taken in a way it doesn't feel like maybe they did in eras past.
Yeah, I mean, it's the whole concept of kind of telling the press what to do as like a directive is just foreign to me. I just... obviously some of that goes on, and you hope, I mean, obviously the press can be overly intrusive. They can be horrific in hounding people and things like that. But I think it's one thing to hope and try and instill and have some sense of journalistic ethics that hopefully would prevent things like that, and top down sort of saying you can take a picture of this but not this, or you can cover this story but not that story. And when, that kind of top-down press control is troubling to me.
Well, and just the idea that you're a member of your family, you're the royal family of a country, a member of your family who you haven't stripped his titles of or from, basically haven't really, he's experienced really no consequences for his actions, just got sued in American court, and you're telling them, oh no, you can't take photos of me still supporting him. Like, that's just ridiculous.
Yeah. No, it is ridiculous. And if it's one thing to stand by your family, and I think most mothers would support most sons, regardless of what that son had done. At least, because of that relationship, to some degree, they're always your child. You're gonna support them, but this just doesn't have a sense of that sort of familial, kind of sticking together and trying to support a family member because you love them and because they're your child, and you can still feel you can support them in a way that also still expresses some sense of understanding of what they've done, or sympathy or empathy for the victims, or whatever way you might go about it. This just seems like we're trying to cover something up.
Yeah. Well, and it's just, I still, trotting the queen out, I don't understand that. But I also understand that she's been their shield for a long time. She's the mom, she's the granny, you can't attack the queen because of her age, that kind of thing.
But I don't think she's an unwitting accomplice.
No, I don't think she's an unwitting accomplice either.
I do think she's still directing a lot of that, probably.
I go back and so we had this talk. I work with old people for a living. And even if she was the most sprightly, peak, 95-year-old in the world, which, as you were saying, might be a chance. She's received the best healthcare her entire life. She's maybe she is the best 95-year-old. There are still going to be age-related. I look at all my patients and their spouses, maybe who aren't sick, who are in their 90s, and imagining them kind of running anything is difficult. So that's where I guess my personal experience comes in, and that's why I say, kind of trotting out the queen, blah, blah, blah. I don't know.
Well, there's certainly a very long history of what she's done, what she's told people, how she's acted, how she's, directed people to do things that, whether or not she's still directly kind of giving the orders, I think her feelings on certain subjects or her wishes are probably well known at this point to the people who are calling the shots if it's not her. And I think if she wanted things done another way, she certainly could shift things in that direction, and she hasn't.
No, she has a long history of doing stupid, awful things. So kind of like last time, we talked about, in all of our wisdom, what we think they should do. And I just don't, if you're going to strip Harry of everything for having the audacity to leave, I feel like Andrew's got to lose all his stuff.
Well, I don't know what his stuff,
titles, gone.
But they haven't done that to Harry yet.
Yeah, they have.
No.
Not like his prince titles.
Right.
Sorry. Not like
his patronage.
Yes, his, did a tweet the other day. It's Harry's patronages didn't want to lose him, and they were surprised when they lost him, and they were upset. While most of Andrew's patronages were like, get him the hell away from us. And the royal family was like, oh, yeah, kind of dithered on it. It's like all of his honorary titles should be gone, which is what they did to Harry. All of his patronages should be gone. They signed this lease for the Royal Lodge where basically ensured that his descendants, it's like 100 or 75 year whatever. Why does a disgraced prince still live in like a ginormous royally funded house?
Because they're not willing to go all the way to saying he's disgraced. They're willing to take these half steps, and maybe in large part because, like, for example, his patronages really don't want him, and him stepping back from quote-unquote public life was not, a big deal to anyone but him.
Yeah.
Apparently, So they're willing to do that to make it look like they're sort of taking this into account, but, may have been as much as anything to make sure he's not out there saying things like he said in that interview anymore.
Yeah.
It could have been self-protective too. But Harry and Meghan had the audacity to actually leave and do something that they could point a finger at that led to all these other consequences. I think the bottom line of all of this is that from Andrew on up, they're not willing to admit that he did anything wrong. Not really. And any steps they took like that would have to be seen as an admission that he did something wrong.
Well, I think that's stupid.
Well, it
is. And I think, I think they, especially as she's gotten older, they've tried to do a lot of cleanup of like the Queen's legacy. Kind of the same with Charles. That's why they were so pissed off at the Crown, because they thought they had kind of squeaked through, and then the Crown came out, and I know it's fiction, ish. I actually think they were nicer to Charles and the Crown than they could have been.
Oh yeah, I actually think it's silly that they dislike the Crown if they do, because I think the Crown has been humanizing to all of them in a way that they may or may not deserve.
Well, but what I was saying is I think Charles and Camilla thought that they had kind of successfully rode the wave, and now we're kind of older and people had kind of gotten over it. And then that last season of The Crown comes out and they're forced to turn off comments, blah, 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 because all of Gen Z and the millennials are on TikTok, making fun of Charles. It was a big hit to kind of this multi-decade PR run. Kind of the same thing with the Queen. She hit that low around Diana, and now she's an old granny and no one can attack her because she's 90-something years old, which is BS. If you're going to stay the head of an organization, you open yourself up to criticism. She could abdicate, but she doesn't, because again, she thinks God wants her there. Kind of this Andrew, both the double hit of Andrew and Harry and Meghan have been a pretty hard hit on a legacy they're trying to kind of rehab. And I think they're angry about that, but it's just interesting to me that they're not going to do anything about it. Like when they talk about Queen Elizabeth, they'll talk about how long she reigned, and I feel like they will talk about Diana, they'll talk about Harry and Meghan, and they'll talk about Andrew.
Yeah, well, I think instead of really using Harry and Meghan, using the whole involvement, alleged involvement of Prince Andrew with some of these issues that have become, really at the forefront of things that people talk about, the whole Me Too thing, all that kind of thing, instead of using that to shift towards the modern and the, to embrace some of the things that maybe would have made them more relevant and with it and younger people could have embraced, they've just kind of retreated back into the old...
You can't take photos of us.
You can't take photos of us,
yeah.
and we're the royal family, and
we're the royal family. That's it.
Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this was a fun one. We will see you next time, next Thursday. Hope you have a good day. Bye.